Marcus Wellington adjusted his baseball cap and pulled it lower over his eyes. The 62-year-old billionaire looked nothing like the man who appeared on magazine covers. His usual $1,000 suits were replaced by simple jeans and a plain white t-shirt. His expensive watch was tucked away in his pocket, replaced by a cheap digital one from a convenience store. "Dad, why are we dressed like this?" asked his 16-year-old daughter Emma as they walked toward the small diner on the outskirts of Chicago. She wore a simple sundress and sneakers instead of her usual designer clothes. Marcus smiled and put his arm around her shoulders. "Because today is just about us, sweetheart. No cameras, no business meetings, no one asking for money. Just a father and daughter having lunch." Emma had been asking for this for months. She was tired of fancy restaurants where waiters bowed and scraped, where every conversation was interrupted by phone calls about stock prices and board meetings. She wanted normal. She wanted to see how regular people lived. The bell above the door chimed as they entered Ruby's diner. The place was busy with the lunch crowd. Construction workers sat at the counter, their hard hats resting beside their coffee cups. A group of elderly women shared stories over pie and coffee in a corner booth. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the air. Marcus looked around nervously. He hadn't been in a place like this in over 20 years. Everything was so different from the exclusive restaurants he usually visited. The floors were clean but worn. The furniture was old but comfortable. Real people with real problems filled every seat. "Table for two?" asked a cheerful voice. Marcus turned to see a young black woman approaching them with menus in her hand. She couldn't have been more than 25, with bright eyes and a genuine smile that reached all the way to her eyes. Her name tag read Keisha. "Yes, please," Marcus replied, surprised by how normal it felt to be treated like any other customer. Keisha led them to a booth by the window. As she handed them menus, she noticed Emma first. "Oh my goodness, I love your dress. That color looks amazing on you." Emma's face lit up. She wasn't used to compliments that weren't about her father's money or status. "Thank you. I wasn't sure about the blue, but I thought it might be nice for a change." "It's perfect," Keisha said warmly. "And you have such beautiful eyes. They're the same color as the dress." Marcus watched the interaction with growing interest. Keisha hadn't even looked at him yet. Her attention was completely focused on Emma, making his daughter feel special and important. In their usual world, people always noticed Marcus first, then treated Emma well only because of who her father was. "I'm Keisha, and I'll be taking care of you both today," she said, finally, acknowledging Marcus with the same warm smile she'd given Emma. "Can I start you off with something to drink? Could I have a chocolate milkshake?" Emma asked excitedly. At home, her nutritionist monitored everything she ate. Milkshakes were definitely not on the approved list. "Absolutely. We make them with real ice cream and chocolate syrup. Want some whipped cream on top?" "Yes, please." Marcus ordered coffee, black. As Keisha walked away to get their drinks, he found himself watching her. She moved with purpose but took time to check on other customers along the way. She refilled an elderly man's coffee without being asked and brought extra napkins to a mother struggling with two small children. "She seems nice," Emma said, following her father's gaze. "Yes, she does," Marcus agreed, realizing he was still watching Keisha. When she returned with their drinks, Keisha set Emma's milkshake down with a flourish. "There you go, beautiful. And, sir, your coffee. Have you had a chance to look at the menu?" Emma ordered a cheeseburger with fries. Marcus asked for the same, though he couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten a burger that wasn't prepared by a private chef. "Great choices," Keisha said, writing on her pad. "The burgers are made fresh, and the fries are cut here every morning. You picked a good day to come in." As she walked away again, Marcus found himself studying the other customers. A truck driver was reading a newspaper while eating his lunch alone. Two teenagers shared nachos and laughed about something on their phones. An older couple held hands across their table while waiting for their food. These people seemed happy, genuinely happy, in a way that Marcus rarely saw in his world. They weren't worried about stock prices or merger deals. They were just living their lives, finding joy in simple moments. "Dad, are you okay?" Emma asked. "You look like you're thinking really hard about something." Marcus shook his head and smiled. "Just observing. This place is different from what we're used to." "Different good or different bad?" "Different good, I think." Keisha brought their food 20 minutes later. The burgers were thick and juicy, the fries golden and crispy. Emma took a huge bite and closed her eyes in happiness. "This is so much better than that fancy place we went to last week," she said with her mouth full. Marcus tasted his burger and had to agree. There was something honest about the food, something real that was missing from the elaborate meals he usually ate. "How is everything?" Keisha asked, stopping by their table. "Amazing," Emma said. "I haven't had a burger this good in forever." "I'm glad you're enjoying it. Is this your first time at Ruby's?" "Yes, and it won't be our last," Emma replied quickly, looking at her father for confirmation. Marcus nodded. "The food is excellent." "Well, welcome to the family then," Keisha said with a laugh. "Ruby always says that once you eat here, you're part of the family." As they ate, Marcus found himself listening to Keisha interact with other customers. She knew most of them by name. She asked about their jobs, their families, their lives. She remembered that Tom liked extra pickles on his burger and that Mrs. Henderson needed her coffee with 2 sugars and real cream, not the artificial stuff. "She's really something," Emma whispered, nodding toward Keisha. Marcus watched as Keisha helped an elderly woman to her car with her leftovers, then returned to clear tables and take orders without missing a beat. She worked harder than most of his employees, and she did it with a smile. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Emma said, setting down her milkshake. "Of course, sweetheart. Do you ever feel like the people around us only care about us because of the money?" The question caught Marcus off guard, though he realized he shouldn't have been surprised. Emma was smart and observant. She'd probably noticed the same things he had over the years. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Why do you ask?" "Because she doesn't know who we are, and she's being nicer to us than most people who do know. She made me feel special, not because of what you do or how much money we have, but just because she liked my dress." Marcus looked at his daughter, really looked at her. She was growing up faster than he'd realized. The innocence in her eyes was being replaced by wisdom, and not all of that wisdom was comfortable. "You're right," he said. "Most people do treat us differently when they know who we are. Do you think she would still be nice to us if she knew?" Marcus considered the question as he watched Keisha laugh with a customer at the counter. She seemed genuine in a way that was rare in his world. "I think she might be one of the few people who would." They finished their meal in comfortable silence, both lost in their own thoughts. Marcus found himself studying everything about the diner, from the faded photographs on the walls to the way the afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows. When Keisha brought the check, Emma spoke up first. "Thank you for making our lunch so special. You made this the best restaurant experience I've had in a long time." Keisha's smile grew even brighter. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week." "Thank you." Marcus left a generous tip, but not so large that it would seem suspicious. As they prepared to leave, Keisha called out to them. "I hope we see you again soon." "You will," Emma called back, waving. Outside in the parking lot, Emma turned to her father. "Can we really come back? Would you like to?" "More than anything. This felt real, Dad. Like we were just normal people having lunch." Marcus looked back at the diner. Through the window, he could see Keisha clearing their table, already focused on her next customers. Something about her had captured his attention in a way he hadn't expected. "Then, we'll come back," he promised. As they drove home, Marcus found himself thinking about Keisha's genuine kindness to Emma. In his world, people were kind to his daughter because they wanted something from him. They saw Emma as a path to his fortune, his influence, his power. But Keisha had simply seen a young girl and wanted to make her feel special. That evening, as Emma did her homework and Marcus reviewed financial reports in his study, he couldn't shake the memory of the afternoon. The diner had felt like stepping into a different world, one where people's worth wasn't measured by their bank accounts or social status. He thought about Keisha's easy laughter, the way she remembered every customer's preferences, how hard she worked without complaining. There was something admirable about her dedication to making people feel welcomed and valued. Marcus realized he was curious about her in a way he hadn't been curious about anyone in years. His ex-wife had been from his world, understanding the pressures and expectations that came with extreme wealth. Most of the women he'd dated since the divorce were also from similar backgrounds. But Keisha represented something different. She was real in a way that 3 days later, Marcus found himself checking his watch more frequently than usual during his morning meetings. Emma had asked if they could return to Ruby's diner for lunch, and he'd agreed perhaps too quickly. His assistant had looked surprised when he'd blocked out 3 hours in the middle of his Wednesday for what he'd simply called personal time. This time, Marcus chose his disguise more carefully. He wore worn jeans, a flannel shirt, and work boots that looked like they'd seen actual labor. He even rubbed some dirt under his fingernails to complete the look. Emma giggled when she saw him. "Dad, you look like you work construction or something." "That's the idea," Marcus replied, adjusting a baseball cap that advertised a local auto parts store. They drove to the diner in Marcus's oldest car, a pickup truck he'd bought years ago, but rarely used. As they pulled into the parking lot, Marcus felt a nervous flutter in his stomach that he hadn't experienced since he was a teenager. The lunch crowd was lighter today. Keisha was behind the counter, laughing with an older man who appeared to be a regular customer. When she saw them enter, her face brightened immediately. "Well, look who's back. I was hoping I'd see you two again." Emma practically bounced to the counter. "Hi, Keisha. We couldn't stop thinking about those burgers." "Smart girl," Keisha said, leading them to the same booth by the window. "You know good food when you taste it. And I have to say, that shirt looks great on you too. You have excellent taste." Marcus noticed that once again, Keisha's attention went to Emma first. It wasn't dismissive of him, but rather a natural inclination to connect with his daughter. In his world, people always addressed him first, then acknowledged Emma as an afterthought. "Thank you," Emma said, smoothing down her simple blue blouse. "My dad helped me pick it out." "Did he now?" Keisha looked at Marcus with new interest. "You've got a good eye, sir. Most dads would have picked something completely wrong." Marcus felt himself smile despite his nervousness. "Emma makes everything look good. I just try not to get in the way." "Spoken like a wise father," Keisha said, handing them menus. "What can I get you to drink today?" Emma ordered another chocolate milkshake, while Marcus asked for coffee. As Keisha walked away, Emma leaned across the table. "She remembered us, Dad. Really remembered us, not just pretended to." Marcus had noticed the same thing. Keisha's recognition seemed genuine, not the practiced remembrance of someone trying to curry favor with important customers. When she returned with their drinks, Marcus found himself speaking before he could stop himself. "You seem to know everyone here." Keisha set down his coffee and smiled. "Most of them. This place becomes like family after a while. Mr. Johnson over there comes in every Tuesday and Thursday after his physical therapy. Mrs. Chun brings her grandkids here every Friday after school. Tommy the truck driver stops by whenever he's passing through town." "How long have you worked here?" Emma asked. "Almost 4 years now. Started when I was 21, right after." Keisha paused, as if deciding how much to share. "Right after I finished community college. Ruby gave me a chance when I really needed one." Marcus found himself wanting to know more. "What did you study?" "Business administration with a focus on hospitality management," Keisha said, pride evident in her voice. "I know it might seem weird that someone with a business degree is waiting tables, but Ruby's teaching me everything about running a restaurant. This is like my graduate program." Emma's eyes widened. "You want to own a restaurant someday?" "That's the dream. Maybe something like this, where people feel like they belong. Where everyone's welcome, no matter what kind of day they've had or how much money they've got in their wallet." Marcus felt something stir in his chest. Here was someone with real dreams, earned through hard work rather than inherited wealth. Someone who understood the value of making people feel valued and welcomed. "That sounds like a wonderful goal," he said, meaning it. "Thanks. Some people think I'm crazy for wanting to work this hard when I could probably find an easier job, but I love what I do here. Every day is different, and I get to be part of people's lives in small but important ways." A customer at another table waved, and Keisha excused herself to take their order. Marcus watched her work, noting how she remembered each person's usual order and asked about their families, their jobs, their lives outside the diner. "She's amazing, isn't she?" Emma said, following his gaze. Marcus nodded, realizing he was staring. "She is. There's something special about someone who genuinely cares about making other people happy." When Keisha returned to take their order, they both chose burgers again, but this time Marcus asked for her recommendation on sides. "Definitely the sweet potato fries," she said without hesitation. "Ruby makes them with this special seasoning that'll change your life. And if you're feeling adventurous, try the homemade onion rings. They're not on the menu, but I can ask Ruby to make some off-menu items. Marcus asked, intrigued. Ruby likes to experiment. If she's in a good mood and not too busy, she'll make special things for customers she likes. Keisha winked at Emma. And she definitely likes you too. 20 minutes later, Keisha returned with their food plus a basket of golden onion rings. Ruby's compliments, she said, setting them down. She said anyone who can make you smile like that deserves her special onion rings. Make me smile like what? Keisha asked, confused. Emma giggled. Like you did when we walked in. Ruby noticed. Keisha looked embarrassed, but pleased. Well, it's nice to see friendly faces. You'd be surprised how many people come in here just looking for something to complain about. Marcus tasted the onion rings and nearly groaned with pleasure. They were perfectly crispy on the outside, sweet, and tender inside. These are incredible. Ruby's been perfecting that recipe for 15 years. The secret is in the batter, but she won't tell anyone what's in it. I've been trying to figure it out for 4 years. Maybe she's waiting for the right moment to share it, Marcus suggested. Maybe when I prove I'm really committed to this life, Keisha said thoughtfully. She's protective of her recipes, but she's also protective of her people. She wants to make sure I'm not going to disappear when something easier comes along. As they ate, Marcus found himself asking more questions. He learned that Keisha lived in a small apartment about 10 minutes away, that she'd grown up with her grandmother after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12, and that her grandmother had taught her the importance of treating everyone with kindness regardless of their circumstances. Grandma used to say that you never know what someone's going through, so the least you can do is be kind, Keisha explained. Maybe they just lost their job, or their marriage is falling apart, or they got bad news from the doctor. A smile and a good meal might be the only bright spot in their day. Emma was hanging on every word. Your grandmother sounds wise. She was. She passed away 2 years ago, but I try to live by what she taught me. Make people feel seen and valued. Work hard for what you want. Don't judge people by what they have or don't have, but by how they treat others. Marcus felt a tightness in his chest. When was the last time he'd heard such genuine wisdom? In his world, people talked about market strategies and profit margins, about leveraging opportunities and maximizing returns. But Keisha spoke about human dignity and simple kindness as if they were the most important things in the world, which he was beginning to think they might be. What about you two? Keisha asked as she refilled Marcus's coffee. What do you do for work? Marcus felt his heart skip. He'd been dreading this question, but also curious about how he'd answer it. I work in business, he said carefully. Mostly investments and consulting. It wasn't technically a lie, though it was the biggest understatement of his life. That sounds interesting. Do you travel a lot? Sometimes. Emma comes with me when she can, but we try to spend time together when I'm in town. Emma jumped in smoothly. Dad works too much, but he's trying to do better about spending time with family. Keisha smiled at them both. That's sweet. Family time is important. I can tell you two have a special relationship. We're working on it, Marcus said, looking at his daughter. Emma's teaching me to appreciate the simple things in life. Like good burgers and chocolate milkshakes, Emma added with a grin. Exactly like that. A busy period started around 1 o'clock, and Keisha had to focus on other tables, but she checked on them regularly. Marcus found himself watching her work with admiration. She moved efficiently but never seemed rushed. She remembered orders without writing everything down. She diffused a complaint from an angry customer with such grace that the man left smiling. She's like a conductor, Emma observed. Everything runs smoothly when she's in charge. Marcus nodded. He'd seen many managers in his business dealings, people who commanded respect through authority or intimidation. But Keisha led through competence and kindness, making people want to do their best rather than forcing them to comply. When the rush died down, Keisha returned to their table. Sorry about that. Wednesdays get crazy around lunchtime. Don't apologize, Marcus said. It was impressive to watch you work. You make it look easy. Years of practice. And Ruby's a good teacher. She doesn't just show you how to do things. She explains why they matter. Speaking of Ruby, will we get to meet her today? Emma asked. She's in the kitchen, but I bet she'd love to meet you. Let me check if she has a minute. Keisha disappeared into the kitchen and returned a few moments later with a woman in her 70s who wore a chef's apron and had flour in her silver hair. Ruby had kind eyes and a warm smile that reminded Marcus of the grandmother he'd lost when he was Emma's age. "So you're the folks who've got my Keisha all excited," Ruby said, wiping her hands on her apron before offering one to Marcus. "I'm Ruby, and this is my place." "It's wonderful," Emma said immediately. "The food is amazing, and Keisha's been taking such good care of us. That's my girl. Been training her to take over someday. And she's got the heart for this work. Can't teach someone to care about people the way she does." Marcus shook Ruby's hand, noting her firm grip and the calluses that spoke of decades of hard work. "You've built something special here. Built it for folks like you. People who want good food and honest service without all the fancy nonsense. Keisha tells me you two are becoming regulars. We'd like to be, if you'll have us." "Of course we'll have you. Anyone who makes Keisha smile like that is welcome anytime." Ruby returned to the kitchen, but not before patting Keisha on the shoulder with obvious affection. Marcus realized he was witnessing something rare in his experience, a workplace where people genuinely cared about each other. As they prepared to leave, Emma spoke to Keisha again. "Would it be okay if we came back on Saturday? Maybe for breakfast this time. We open at 7, but I don't start until 9 on weekends. If you can wait until then, I'd love to see you." 9 o'clock it is, Marcus said, surprising himself with how quickly he agreed. Walking to their truck, Emma was quiet until they reached the parking lot. "Dad, I really like her. She seems like a good person." "No, I mean I really like her." "Like, for you." Marcus stopped walking. "Emma, I'm serious. When's the last time you smiled like you did in there? When's the last time you met someone who didn't know about the money and just liked you for who you are?" Marcus considered his daughter's words. She was right about the smiling. He felt more relaxed after 2 hours at Ruby's diner than he had in months of business meetings and social events. "It's complicated, sweetheart." "Why? Because she's not rich? Because she works in a diner? Because our worlds are very different." Emma stopped walking and faced him. Maybe that's exactly why its Saturday morning arrived with an unexpected complication. Marcus woke to find Emma in the kitchen, fully dressed and ready to go, but clearly fighting off a cold. "I'm fine, Dad," she insisted, though her stuffy nose betrayed her. Just a little sniffle. Marcus felt her forehead. She wasn't running a fever, but she was obviously not feeling well. "Maybe we should stay home today. Get you some rest and orange juice." "No," Emma said, then caught herself and lowered her voice. "I mean, we promised Keisha we'd be there at 9. She's probably looking forward to seeing us." Marcus studied his daughter's face. Even sick, she was determined to keep their breakfast date. But more than that, he could see that she was worried about disappointing Keisha. The waitress had made such an impression on Emma that the teenager was willing to drag herself out of bed despite feeling unwell. "Tell you what," Marcus said, making a decision that surprised him. "You stay home and rest. I'll go to the diner and explain that you're not feeling well. I'll bring you back some of Ruby's famous pancakes." Emma looked at him suspiciously. "You want to go by yourself?" "I want to keep our promise to Keisha. And I want to make sure you get some good food in you to help fight off this cold." "Dad, are you sure you're not just looking for an excuse to see her again?" Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "I'm looking for an excuse to be a good father and bring my sick daughter breakfast from her favorite restaurant." Emma smiled despite her congestion. "Okay, but give me everything. Pancakes, bacon, and hash browns. And ask Keisha what she thinks is best for someone who's fighting a cold." An hour later, Marcus found himself walking into Ruby's diner alone for the first time. The breakfast crowd was lighter than lunch had been, mostly older folks reading newspapers and drinking coffee. Keisha was refilling the coffee station when she spotted him. "Where's your beautiful daughter?" she asked immediately, looking toward the door as if expecting Emma to appear. "Homesick," Marcus replied. "Nothing serious, just a cold. But I didn't want her spreading germs around your restaurant." "Smart thinking. But I'm sorry she's not feeling well. Is she okay? Does she need anything?" The immediate concern in Keisha's voice touched Marcus. She'd only met Emma twice, but her worry seemed genuine. "She's fine, just stuffy and tired. I promised to bring her some of Ruby's famous pancakes to help her feel better." "Perfect choice. Ruby's pancakes can cure almost anything. Let me get you seated and We'll take good care of you. Keisha led him to a smaller table near the window instead of the booth they'd shared before. As she handed him a menu, Marcus realized this would be their first real conversation without Emma as a buffer between them. Coffee, she asked. Please. Black. Coming right up. Marcus watched her pour his coffee, noting the easy grace with which she moved. Her uniform was the same as always, simple black pants and a white button-down shirt with the diner's logo, but somehow it seemed more elegant on her than designer clothes looked on most of the women in his social circle. So what sounds good for breakfast? She asked, setting down his cup. Besides the pancakes for Emma, what do you recommend? The breakfast special is really good. 2 eggs, hash browns, bacon or sausage, and toast. Simple, but perfectly done. Or if you're feeling adventurous, Ruby makes this amazing breakfast burrito with scrambled eggs, cheese, peppers, and your choice of meat, all wrapped up in a homemade tortilla. The burrito sounds interesting. Great choice. And for Emma? She wants everything. Pancakes, bacon, hash browns. She also asked me to ask you what you think is best for someone fighting a cold. Keisha smiled. Tell her to drink lots of orange juice and get some rest. And Ruby makes this amazing chicken noodle soup that works better than any medicine. We don't usually serve it for breakfast, but I bet I can convince her to make a small cup for Emma. That's very kind of you. That's what we do here. Take care of people. As Keisha walked away to place his order, Marcus found himself studying the other customers. A man about his age sat alone at the counter, reading a book while eating eggs and toast. 2 women in scrubs, nurses, probably, shared a table and discussed their upcoming shift. An elderly couple held hands across their table while sharing a plate of hash browns. Everyone seemed comfortable here, like they belonged. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd felt that sense of belonging anywhere. Even in his own home, he often felt like he was playing a role: the successful businessman, the devoted father, the generous philanthropist. Food's coming right up, Keisha said, returning with a fresh pot of coffee. Ruby's excited about making soup for Emma. She says any girl with that good taste in milkshakes deserves special treatment. You've both been incredibly kind to us. It's easy to be kind to good people, Keisha replied, refilling his cup even though he'd only taken a few sips. Emma's a special kid. You're raising her right. Some days I'm not so sure. It's hard to know if you're doing the right things when you're doing it alone. The words came out before Marcus could stop them. He hadn't meant to reveal anything personal, but something about Keisha's presence made him want to be honest. Are you divorced? She asked gently, sitting down across from him when she noticed the dining room had emptied out a bit. 2 years now. Emma lives with me most of the time, but I travel a lot for work, so she spends some weekends with her mother. That must be hard on both of you. It is. I'm trying to be better about making time for her, but balancing work and parenting isn't easy. Is that why you brought her here? To spend quality time together? Marcus nodded. She asked for something normal, something real. She gets tired of fancy restaurants where people treat her differently because of... He caught himself before mentioning money. Because of who her father is. What do you mean? Marcus realized he'd painted himself into a corner. I guess I have something of a reputation in business circles. People sometimes pay more attention to us than I'd like. Well, you don't have to worry about that here. We treat everyone the same, like family. The kitchen bell rang, and Keisha excused herself to get his food. She returned with a plate piled high with the breakfast burrito, which was enormous and smelled amazing. There was also a to-go container that presumably held Emma's breakfast. This looks incredible, Marcus said, cutting into the burrito. The first bite was perfect: fluffy eggs, melted cheese, crispy peppers, and spicy sausage all wrapped in a tortilla that tasted homemade. Ruby's been perfecting that recipe for years. She grows the peppers herself in a little garden behind the diner. She grows her own vegetables? Ruby believes in knowing where your food comes from. She sources as much as she can locally. Eggs from a farm about 20 miles out, vegetables from local growers, meat from a family butcher shop. It costs more, but she says you can taste the difference. Marcus could taste the difference. Every ingredient was fresh and flavorful in a way that the expensive restaurants he frequented rarely achieved. What made you want to work here? He asked. You're obviously smart and educated. You could probably work anywhere. Keisha was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much to share. After my grandmother died, I was pretty lost. I had my degree, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I was working at a corporate restaurant chain, hating every minute of it, when I met Ruby. How did you meet her? I came in here on my lunch break one day, just to get away from my job for a while. I must have looked pretty miserable, because Ruby came out of the kitchen and sat down with me. She didn't even know me, but she spent 20 minutes listening to me complain about how fake and impersonal my job was. Marcus found himself leaning forward, genuinely interested in her story. When I was done whining, Ruby said, "Honey, life's too short to spend it doing work that doesn't feed your soul. If you want to make a difference in people's lives, come work for me. I'll teach you everything I know about hospitality, and you can decide if this is the kind of difference you want to make." "And you said yes?" I said yes. Best decision I ever made. I make less money than I did at the chain, but I go home happy every day. I know I'm making a real difference in people's lives, even if it's just by remembering how they like their coffee or asking about their kids. Marcus thought about his own work. When was the last time he'd gone home happy? When was the last time he'd felt like he was making a real difference in anyone's life? Do you miss the corporate world at all? Not even a little. There, I was just a number on a spreadsheet. Here, I'm part of something that matters. Ruby's taught me that success isn't just about money. It's about impact. How many people did you help today? How many people did you make feel valued and important? The words hit Marcus harder than he'd expected. He'd built a fortune by focusing on profits and market share, but when was the last time he'd thought about his impact on individual people? "That's a beautiful way to look at work," he said. "It's Ruby's philosophy, but I've adopted it as my own. She says that if you take care of people, everything else takes care of itself." A new customer entered the diner, and Keisha excused herself to seat them. Marcus continued eating his burrito, thinking about their conversation. He'd spent so many years surrounded by people who measured success in dollars and stock prices that he'd forgotten there were other ways to define achievement. When Keisha returned, she brought a cup of the chicken noodle soup for Emma. "Ruby made this special. She says to tell Emma it's her grandmother's recipe, and it never fails to make someone feel better. You didn't have to do that. We wanted to. Emma's special, and anyone who cares about her as much as you do is special too." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. He couldn't remember the last time someone had done something kind for him without expecting anything in return. "Can I ask you something?" he said as Keisha prepared the rest of Emma's order for takeout. "Of course. What do you do when you're not here?" "For fun, I mean. I read a lot. Take walks in the park. Visit the art museum on free days. Nothing too exciting." She paused. "What about you?" Marcus realized he didn't have a good answer. His free time was usually filled with business dinners, charity events, or activities that were somehow connected to work. "I'm trying to learn how to have fun again. Emma's teaching me. She seems like a good teacher. The best. She's the one who suggested we come here in the first place. She wanted to see how normal people lived." Keisha laughed. "Well, this is about as normal as it gets. Good food, friendly service, and people who care about each other. Nothing fancy, but it works." As Marcus prepared to leave, he found himself reluctant to end the conversation. For the first time in years, he'd talked to someone who seemed genuinely interested in him as a person rather than as a business opportunity. "I hope Emma feels better soon," Keisha said, handing him the bag of food. "And I hope you'll both come back when she's well." "We will," Marcus promised. "Thank you for taking such good care of us." That's what we do. Driving home, Marcus found himself thinking about Keisha's words about impact and success. He'd built a business empire, but what kind of impact had he really made? His companies were profitable, but did they make people's lives better? His employees were well paid, but did they go home happy at the end of the day? When he arrived home, Emma was curled up on the couch in her pajamas, looking miserable but brightening when she saw the food. "How was breakfast?" she asked as he unpacked the containers. "Good. Keisha sent you special soup from Ruby's grandmother's recipe." Emma tasted the soup and closed her eyes in pleasure. "This is amazing. Did you have a good time with Keisha?" "We talked. She's interesting." "Interesting how?" The following Tuesday, Marcus found himself doing something unprecedented. He canceled a board meeting to visit Ruby's diner during lunch. Alone. When his assistant asked if he needed the meeting rescheduled, Marcus told her he'd handle it personally later. For the first time in 20 years, Marcus Wellington was putting his personal interests ahead of business obligations. He arrived at the diner just after the lunch rush, hoping to catch Keisha during a quieter moment. She was wiping down tables when she spotted him, her face lighting up with genuine surprise and pleasure. "Well, this is unexpected. Where's Emma today?" "School," Marcus replied, feeling suddenly awkward. "I was in the area for a meeting and thought I'd grab some coffee." It was a lie. His office was 30 miles away, and he'd driven specifically to see her. But he wasn't ready to admit that yet, even to himself. "Of course, please." She poured his coffee and set the cup down, then surprised him by sliding into the seat across from him. "We're pretty slow right now. Mind if I sit for a minute?" "I'd like that. How's Emma feeling? Did the soup help?" "Much better, thanks to you and Ruby. She wanted me to tell you that it was the best medicine she'd ever had." "Ruby will be thrilled to hear that. She loves it when people appreciate her cooking." Marcus took a sip of his coffee, trying to figure out how to continue the conversation. In business settings, he always knew what to say, but this felt different. More important somehow. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Anything." "Yesterday, when you talked about measuring success by impact instead of money, did you always think that way?" Keisha considered the question. "No, I don't think so. When I was younger, I probably would have said success meant having enough money to buy whatever you wanted. But watching my grandmother taught me differently." "What did she do?" "She was a school custodian for 40 years. Never made much money, but she knew every kid in that school. She remembered their names, asked about their families, made sure they felt safe and cared for. When she died, over 300 people came to her funeral. Teachers, parents, kids she'd helped over the years." Keisha's voice softened as she continued. "I realized that day that my grandmother was the richest person I'd ever known, not because of what she had, but because of what she gave. All those people whose lives she'd touched, all the kindness she'd put into the world. That was her real legacy." Marcus felt something tighten in his throat. "That's beautiful. It changed how I think about everything. I started asking myself, at the end of the day, what kind of impact did I have? Did I make someone's day a little brighter? Did I help someone feel valued and important? And working here helps you do that? Every day?" "Yesterday, Mrs. Patterson came in crying because her husband's in the hospital. I sat with her for 20 minutes, brought her tea, and listened to her worry. That meant more to her than any expensive meal ever could." Marcus thought about his own days, filled with meetings and phone calls and decisions that affected stock prices but rarely touched individual lives. "I don't think I've made anyone's day brighter in years." "I find that hard to believe. You're raising an amazing daughter who clearly adores you. Emma's special despite me, not because of me." "I don't think that's true. You can see how much she loves spending time with you, how proud she is when she talks about you. That doesn't happen by accident." Marcus looked out the window, considering her words. "I worry that I'm not giving her what she needs. Her mother thinks I work too much, that I'm too focused on business to be a good father." "What do you think?" The question was simple, but it hit Marcus like a physical blow. When was the last time anyone had asked him what he thought about his own life? "I think I've been hiding behind work because I don't know how to be a good father. Building companies is something I understand. Being the kind of parent Emma deserves, that's much harder. But you're trying. You brought her here because she asked for something normal. You stayed home with her when she was sick. You drove across town just to bring her soup when she wasn't feeling well. That sounds like love to me. Maybe. But I see how she lights up around you, how comfortable she is here. She's more herself in this diner than she is anywhere else in her life. Because here, she's just Emma. Not the daughter of someone important, not someone who has to behave a certain way. She's just a smart, funny teenager who likes chocolate milkshakes." Marcus looked at Keisha intently. "Is that what you see when you look at her? Just a normal kid?" "Of course. What else would I see?" The innocence of the question made Marcus realize how rare that perspective was in his world. Emma was never just Emma to most people. She was always Marcus Wellington's daughter, with all the implications that carried. "You really don't know, do you?" he said softly. "Know what?" Marcus wrestled with himself for a long moment. Part of him wanted to tell her the truth about who he was, about the wealth and power that defined his identity to everyone else. But another part of him was terrified that knowledge would change how she looked at him, just as it changed how everyone else looked at him. "Nothing," he said finally. Just thank you for seeing her as herself. A group of customers entered the diner, and Keisha excused herself to seat them. Marcus watched her work, noting again how she made each person feel welcomed and valued. When she laughed with an elderly man about his grandson's baseball team, Marcus felt something he rarely experienced: envy. He envied the simplicity of her interactions, the genuine connections she formed with people. In his world, every conversation was layered with subtext, every relationship complicated by questions of motive and advantage. When the customers were settled, Keisha returned to his table. Sorry about that. Where were we? I was thinking about what you said earlier, about asking yourself what kind of impact you had each day. It's a good question to ask. What would your answer be? Marcus considered this honestly. Most days, I'm not sure I have much impact on anyone's life in a positive way. I make business decisions that affect stock prices and profit margins, but I don't often think about how they affect real people. Maybe that's something you could change. How? I don't know. You'd know better than me what opportunities you have. But maybe start by asking yourself who you could help today. Even small things matter. Marcus thought about his schedule for the rest of the week. Board meetings, conference calls, contract negotiations. None of it seemed designed to help anyone in meaningful ways. Can I ask you something else? He said. Sure. Do you ever get tired of it? Taking care of everyone else, always being positive and helpful. Keisha was quiet for a moment. Sometimes, she admitted. There are days when I'm dealing with my own problems, but I still have to smile and pretend everything's fine because that's what people need from me. What kinds of problems? The usual stuff. Money's tight, especially since I'm trying to save for my own restaurant someday. My apartment has issues that my landlord won't fix. Sometimes I get lonely, especially since my grandmother died. The honesty surprised Marcus. In his experience, people rarely admitted to financial struggles or personal problems, at least not without an ulterior motive. I'm sorry. That must be hard. It is sometimes. But then, I come to work and Ruby makes me laugh, or a customer tells me I brightened their day, and I remember why I love what I do. The good outweighs the hard. Marcus found himself wanting to help her, to fix her problems with his wealth and resources. But he knew that would require revealing who he was, and he wasn't ready for that conversation yet. You mentioned saving for your own restaurant. How long do you think that will take? Keisha laughed, but there was no bitterness in it. At my current rate? About 15 years, maybe 20. But that's okay. Ruby says good things take time, and if it was easy, everyone would do it. 15 years. Marcus could write a check right now that would allow her to open her restaurant next month. The thought of her struggling and saving for decades to achieve a dream he could make happen instantly felt wrong. What kind of restaurant do you want to open? Something like this, but maybe a little bigger. A place where people feel like family, where the food is honest and good, where everyone's welcome regardless of what they can afford. I'd like to hire people who need a chance, the way Ruby hired me. That sounds wonderful. It's just a dream for now. But dreams are important, even if they take a while to come true. Marcus looked around the diner, seeing it through her eyes. The worn but comfortable furniture, the photographs of regular customers on the walls, the easy familiarity between staff and patrons. She wanted to create more places like this, more spaces where people could feel valued and cared for. It was possibly the most noble business plan he'd ever heard. I should probably get back to work, Keisha said, noticing that more customers were arriving. But I'm glad you stopped by. It's nice to have adult conversation during the day. I'm glad I came too. Thank you for talking with me. Come back anytime. And bring Emma when she's feeling better. As Marcus drove back toward his office, he found himself thinking about Keisha's dreams and struggles. The contrast between her financial reality and his obscene wealth felt overwhelming. She was working multiple jobs, saving every penny, dreaming of a future that might take decades to achieve, while he had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. But more than the financial disparity, he was struck by the difference in their approaches to life. She measured success by impact and happiness, while he measured it in dollars and market share. She found satisfaction in small acts of kindness, while he found satisfaction in closed deals and profit reports. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus wondered if he was the one who had it wrong. That evening, He sat in his study pretending to review contracts while actually thinking about Keisha's grandmother's funeral. 300 people coming to honor a school custodian because she'd made their lives better in small, but important ways. Marcus tried to imagine his own funeral. Who would come? Business Associate Thursday afternoon found Marcus sitting in his car outside Ruby's diner, gathering courage for a conversation that might change everything. In his briefcase was a manila folder containing information that could solve all of Keisha's financial problems instantly. But using it would mean revealing who he really was, and he wasn't sure their connection could survive that revelation. He'd spent the previous evening researching her background, not through private investigators, but through public records. Keisha Williams, 25 years old, graduated from community college with honors, no criminal record, excellent credit despite limited income. Her landlord had multiple complaints filed against him for neglecting repairs. Her savings account, visible through her credit report, contained exactly $2,847. $2,847. Marcus spent more than that on wine at a single dinner. The contrast made his wealth feel obscene rather than earned. Taking a deep breath, Marcus entered the diner. It was mid-afternoon, the slow period between lunch and dinner. Keisha was restocking the coffee station when she spotted him. 2 days in a row. This is becoming a habit, she said with a smile that made Marcus's chest tighten. I hope that's okay. More than okay. Coffee, please. She led him to the same booth and poured his coffee, then surprised him by sitting down across from him without being asked. The gesture felt intimate in a way that had nothing to do with romance, and everything to do with genuine friendship. You look like you have something on your mind, she observed. Marcus did have something on his mind. Several somethings, actually, all of them connected to the woman sitting across from him. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about impact and helping people, and I want to help you. Keisha tilted her head. Help me how? This was the moment Marcus had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. I know you're saving for your restaurant. I'd like to help you get there faster. That's sweet, but I'm not looking for a loan. I want to earn this myself. What if it wasn't a loan? What if it was an investment? Keisha looked confused. I don't understand. Marcus opened the folder he'd brought and pulled out a business plan he'd spent hours preparing. I had some time yesterday, so I put together some numbers. Based on what you've told me about your restaurant idea, you'd need about $200,000 to get started. Lease a space, renovate it, buy equipment, hire staff, cover operating expenses for the first year. Keisha stared at the document. What is this? A business proposal. I'd like to be a silent partner in your restaurant. I provide the startup capital, you provide the vision and management. We split the profits. Wait, stop. Keisha held up her hand. Who are you? Really? The question Marcus had been avoiding hung in the air between them. He could deflect again, make up another story about being in investments and consulting. But, looking at Keisha's confused and slightly hurt expression, he knew the time for half-truths was over. My name is Marcus Wellington. I own Wellington Industries. Keisha's face went blank. Wellington Industries. The company that owns half the buildings in downtown Chicago. Among other things, yes. You're that Marcus Wellington. The billionaire. Yes. Keisha stood up from the booth so quickly that she nearly knocked over her chair. Oh my God. Oh my God. Emma's not just some normal teenager. She's Marcus Wellington's daughter. Keisha, please sit down. Let me explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to me for a week? That you've been coming in here pretending to be someone you're not? I never lied about who I am as a person. You lied about everything else. Keisha's voice was rising, causing other customers to look over. You let me tell you about my financial problems, about how long it would take me to save for my restaurant, all while knowing you could buy this entire block with pocket change. I wanted to get to know you without my money getting in the way. Your money. Keisha laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think this is about money? This is about trust, about honesty, about the fact that I've been sitting here feeling sorry for myself because I thought I was talking to someone who understood struggle. Marcus felt like he was watching everything important slip away from him. I do understand struggle. It's just different kinds of struggle. Different kinds? Really? You want to tell me about the struggle of having too much money while I'm over here rationing groceries and wearing the same 3 work shirts because I can't afford to buy new ones? The words hit Marcus like physical blows. He'd known about her financial situation intellectually, but hearing the reality of her daily life made his attempts to relate seem ridiculous. "You're right," he said quietly. "I don't understand your struggles. But I understand feeling isolated, feeling like people only care about you for what you can give them. I understand wondering if anyone would like you for who you are rather than what you have. So you decided to test me? To see if I'd pass your little authenticity exam?" "No, that's not what this was." "Then what was it? Entertainment? Research? Some kind of social experiment to see how the poor people live?" "It was me trying to find one genuine connection in a world full of people who only see dollar signs when they look at me." Keisha shook her head. "And you thought the best way to find a genuine connection was to start with deception?" Marcus didn't have an answer for that. He'd told himself he was protecting their connection by hiding his wealth, but now he could see how that protection looked like manipulation from her perspective. "I should have told you sooner," he admitted. "You should have told me immediately. The first day you walked in here. Would you have treated me the same way if you'd known?" The question stopped Keisha short. She considered it honestly, which Marcus appreciated even in the midst of his shame. "I don't know," she said finally. "Maybe not. But that would have been my choice to make, not yours." "You're right. And this business proposal?" She picked up the folder and held it like it contained something toxic. "What is this supposed to be? Payment for services rendered? A consolation prize because you feel guilty for lying? It's me trying to help someone whose dreams matter to me." "Dreams that matter to you? You've known me for a week. A week in which you've shown me more genuine kindness and authentic connection than I've experienced in years." Keisha sat back down, but her posture remained defensive. "You don't know me, Marcus. You know Ruby's Diner, Keisha, the version of me that's paid to be nice to customers. You don't know what I'm like when I'm tired or stressed or dealing with real problems." "Then let me get to know that person." "Why? So you can add dated a waitress to your list of life experiences? So you can feel good about yourself for helping one of the little people?" The accusation stung because it contained a grain of truth. Part of him was drawn to Keisha because she represented everything his world wasn't: authentic, kind, unimpressed by wealth and status. "That's not fair," he said. "Isn't it? You come in here playing dress up, pretending to be someone you're not, making me care about you under false pretenses. And now you want to throw money at me like that fixes everything." "I don't want to throw money at you. I want to invest in someone whose vision and values I believe in. Someone you've known for a week while pretending to be someone else." Marcus realized they were going in circles, and with each exchange, he was losing more ground. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to leave." The words hit Marcus harder than any business failure ever had. "Keisha, I need time to think. About all of this. About what's real and what isn't." Marcus stood slowly, leaving the business proposal on the table. "For what it's worth, everything I told you about myself was true. I am divorced. I do struggle with being a good father to Emma. And I have been hiding behind work because I don't know how to connect with people. And you're also a billionaire who owns half of Chicago." "That too." Keisha looked up at him, and for a moment, Marcus thought he saw something soften in her expression. "Emma doesn't know you told me, does she?" "No. Don't tell her. Whatever happens between us, don't let it affect your relationship with her. She loves you, and she loves coming here. Don't take that away from her because you and I can't figure out how to be honest with each other." The generosity of the gesture, even in the midst of her anger, reminded Marcus why he'd been drawn to her in the first place. "Thank you," he said. Marcus left the diner feeling like he'd lost something precious before he'd fully understood what he had. Driving home, he replayed the conversation, searching for the moment when everything had gone wrong. But he knew the mistake hadn't been in what he'd said today. It had been in what he hadn't said from the beginning. That evening, Emma asked if they could go back to Ruby's Diner for dinner. Marcus made an excuse about having too much work, hating himself for the disappointment in her eyes. Over the next few days, Marcus found himself driving past the diner at different times, looking for Keisha's car in the parking lot. He never stopped, but he couldn't seem to stay away entirely. He threw himself back into work, accepting every meeting request, scheduling calls during lunch breaks, staying at the office until late in the evening. His assistant commented that he seemed to be reverting to his old workaholic patterns. But the distraction didn't work the way it used to. In the middle of conference calls, he found himself thinking about Keisha's dreams of opening a restaurant where everyone felt like family. During board meetings, he remembered her philosophy about measuring success by impact rather than profit. A week after their confrontation, Marcus received an envelope delivered by courier to his office. Inside was the business proposal he'd left at the diner, along with a handwritten note. "Mr. Wellington, thank you for your offer, but I need to earn my restaurant the way my grandmother taught me to earn everything else, through hard work and patience. I hope you find what you're looking for, and I hope Emma continues to find joy in simple things like chocolate milkshakes and good burgers." Keisha. That evening, Emma asked again if they could visit Ruby's diner. Marcus knew he couldn't keep making excuses without explaining what had happened, and he couldn't explain without revealing his deception to his daughter. "Maybe this weekend," he said, knowing he was lying. "Dad, is everything okay? You seem different lately." Marcus looked at his daughter, this remarkable young woman who had led him to discover something precious, and then watch him destroy it through his own dishonesty. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just busy with work. You know, when we were at Ruby's, you seemed happier than I'd seen you in a long time. Maybe we should go back soon." That night, Marcus stood at the window of his study, looking out at the city lights and thinking about a woman who worked late shifts at a diner while saving $2,000 toward a dream that would take her 20 years to achieve. He thought about authentic connections and honest relationships, about the difference between having wealth and having worth, about a grandmother who had been rich in ways that mattered most. Most of all, he thought about second chances and whether someone like him deserved one from someone like her. In his desk drawer, Marcus kept the note Keisha had sent with his returned business proposal. He read it every night before going to bed, searching for some sign that the door between them wasn't permanently closed. Because for the first time in his life, Marcus Wellington had found something more valuable than money. And he'd lost it by forgetting that the most precious things couldn't be bought, only earned through the very honesty he'd failed to offer when it mattered most. Tez, social acquaintances, people who had profited from their relationship with him. But how many would come because he'd actually improved their lives? The realization was uncomfortable but clarifying. He'd spent decades building wealth and power, but Keisha's grandmother had built something more valuable, genuine connections with people who mattered. Marcus pulled out his phone and did something he hadn't done in years. He called his assistant and told her to clear his schedule for Thursday afternoon. He wanted to visit Ruby's diner again, and this time, he wanted to have a longer conversation with a woman who was teaching him to see success in an entirely different way. A woman who was making him question everything he thought he knew about what made a life well lived. Marcus considered the question. "She thinks about things differently than most people I know. She measures success by how many people she helps rather than how much money she makes. Maybe you could learn something from her." Maybe I could. As Emma ate her breakfast, and the soup worked its magic on her cold, Marcus found himself making plans to return to Ruby's diner. Not for Emma this time, but for himself. He wanted to understand more about Keisha's philosophy, about finding satisfaction in simple acts of kindness. He wanted to know if the connection he'd felt during their conversation was real, and if there was room in his complicated life for the kind of authentic relationship that seemed to exist naturally in her world. For the first time in years, Marcus Wellington was thinking about something other than business deals and profit margins. He was thinking about a woman who measured success by smiles instead of stock prices, and wondering if she might be willing to teach him a different way to live. Perfect. As they drove home, Marcus found himself thinking about Emma's words. He'd spent so many years surrounded by people who understood the pressures and expectations of extreme wealth that he'd forgotten what it felt like to interact with someone who simply saw him as a person. Keisha had asked about his work with genuine curiosity, not because she wanted something from him, but because she was interested in him as an individual. She'd connected with Emma not as the daughter of a billionaire, but as a bright young woman deserving of attention and kindness. That evening, Marcus found himself distracted during a conference call with investors in Tokyo. His mind kept drifting to Keisha's laugh, to the way she defended a difficult customer with patience and understanding, to her dreams of opening her own restaurant someday. By the time he went to bed, Marcus had made a decision. He would continue visiting Ruby's diner, ostensibly for Emma, but increasingly for himself. He wanted to understand what made Keisha choose kindness over cynicism, hard work over easy money, genuine connection over calculated networking. He wanted to know if the spark he'd felt when she smiled was real, or just the novelty of meeting someone outside his usual world. Most importantly, he wanted to discover if there was room in his carefully controlled life for the kind of authentic connection he'd glimpsed across a diner table while sharing onion rings and watching his daughter laugh with pure joy. Saturday morning couldn't come soon enough. LT foreign yet appealing. She worked for everything she had, treated people with genuine kindness, and found satisfaction in simple accomplishments. As he prepared for bed that night, Marcus made a decision. He would return to Ruby's diner, not just because Emma enjoyed it, but because he wanted to understand more about the world Keisha inhabited. He wanted to know what made someone choose kindness over cynicism, hard work over entitlement, genuine care over calculated charm. For the first time in years, Marcus Wellington was genuinely curious about someone who knew nothing about his wealth or status. Someone who had treated his daughter with kindness simply because it was the right thing to do. The next morning, as he dressed for another day of board meetings and business calls, Marcus found himself looking forward to the weekend. Emma had already asked twice if they could go back to the diner, and he'd agreed without hesitation. He didn't know what he expected to discover about Keisha or about himself, but he knew that yesterday had awakened something in him that had been dormant for far too long. A curiosity about people, about life beyond the walls of his corporate empire. Whatever happened next, Marcus was certain that his simple lunch at Ruby's diner had changed something fundamental about how he saw the world around him.